Hello everyone, I am Leroy. It's Magnificent Monday. Today we're learning about stressors and instant messaging. This is based on a paper. The paper is called Too Close and Too Crowded. It is from a university out of the Republic of Korea, which is commonly known as South Korea to many of us. So first things first, for those of you who aren't too familiar with the Republic of Korea, Kakao is a very popular messaging app. Kakao Talk Line is the full name, and it is the #1 app in the Republic of Korea. This is on the screen. You have 53 million active users, 47 million of them are in the Republic of Korea, and comparatively, WhatsApp is the largest in the United States. So in the United States, we have 75 million users for WhatsApp, but the USA population is 332 million roughly, versus 52 million in the Republic of Korea. So the USA, WhatsApp is about 23% of the population, which is very small, opposed to the Republic of Korea, where nearly 90, some of the other estimates I saw was 91, 92% use Kakao. So this is a very widespread app. It's, for many people, the main way of communication. Instead of texting people, they use Kakao instant messaging. And it's, permeated quite a lot of different parts of life. Give you an example of how common this is. When COVID first broke out, I was in the Republic of Korea at the time, and once the those stay-in-place orders were done and you could actually go eat at restaurants again, you would sign into the restaurant when you got there. When you put what time you got there, you'd put your name, you would put your Kakao handle. That's how they would contact you if while you were there, someone that was also there at that time tested positive for COVID, is they would message you on Kakao. So it was an expectation that you'd have a Kakao and a Kakao handle so that they could contact you for health concerns. So again, that's just how prevalent it is. 90% of people use it, so it's pretty common. It's assumed you would have one, and that's kind of the norm there. All right, moving on. So the next big thing we kind of need to talk about so you can understand where this paper is coming from is the idea of proxemics. So proxemics is the role and use of space in communication. So for example, people feel too stressed, or people begin to feel stressed when you are too close to them. So if I just met you, we don't know each other at all, and I'm standing right up on you, like, really, really close to you, it'd be a bit creepy, right? That'd be a bit socially unacceptable. If we were maybe really close friends, or, significant other kind of situation, we were dating or something along that lines, he's standing in your space or really close to you wouldn't be that strange. But for someone you don't know, or someone that you really don't know that well, it's a bit odd. It can kind of, make you feel uncomfortable, cause unneeded stress. And the next one is too many people. So obviously, a lot of people don't like to go to large parties. A lot of people don't like larger classes in schools. They don't like all these people. A lot of people have a fear of public speaking. In fact, I think public speaking is like the second most common fear, if I'm not mistaken. This idea of a lot of people seeing me, a lot of people hearing me, is a real stressor to a lot of people. And then for the purposes of this paper, they're using this idea, which is originally comes from anthropology, and they're using it to kind of explain some of the phenomenon that we are seeing in the digital space. So from here on out, I am going to use the sub-themes that the author, Shin, created. These on the screen now are quotes from various people that they used a focus group for. They asked them questions, and these were some of the answers they got. Instead of just reading these out, I have kind of paraphrased versions of each point that I'm going to go through on my notes right here. So for strangers in dwellings, right? So this idea that people that you don't know are in your space, right? We mentioned this a moment ago of, you don't know me very well. I'm really up close to you. I'm in your bubble. I'm in your space, and that would cause stress. So how does that equate to a digital space? Well, in a digital space, for example, having someone that you don't really know very well, or maybe someone that you work with, maybe someone, as that music instructor said, it's someone you teach's parent, right? Like, you don't even really know the mother. You just work with the child to teach it music lessons. And then you have this mother messaging you on Kakao, which is, although very common, is a much more personal way of doing it. I think the easiest way to make it make sense for people that, would come and be watching like live streams is like Discord. Like imagine that you got paid by somebody to do a service and they messaged you a private message on Discord, and you couldn't stop them from messaging you. You couldn't stop them from like, knowing your Discord information, and they could see your profile. They could see your statuses you have on Discord, things like that. That would be a bit weird. It'd feel like a bit of a, violation of privacy. You wouldn't like that this person that you really don't know very well is seeing, your personal profile, your personal account, and how you interact with your friends. In the example of the music teacher they mentioned, they prefer text messaging. Now, next thing is this idea that strangers can message them at any time, and it's difficult to block them. It's not only can anyone message you, but anyone can message you, see your profile, it's public. As soon as they do message you, they are added as your friend. The only option you have to stop them from messaging you is blocking them. So if it's, again, a situation like that music teacher, where it's someone that you know and would need to contact you because you work with them, but it's still inappropriate for them to communicate with you in that way, like, do you block them? I don't know. That could make it where they're less likely to hire you in the future. And obviously that's not ideal either. Additionally, you can't have multiple accounts. So if you are having to use your Kakao for both your personal use and for your business, you have to be really careful what you put on there because it's public. Anyone can see it. Anyone could message you. Anyone that would have your phone number could find you easily, or your full name. So that's a bit of a problem. Not having that ability to distinguish between your public account and your private account, or your personal account and your business account, can lead to a lot of awkward and unideal situations. The next thing about strangers dwelling is these updates, right? So the graduate student here mentions that they meet someone in one of their classes. They don't know them very well, but maybe they're on a group project or something with them, and they're getting messaged, and they feel like they should reply because as soon as they open that message, that person gets a read receipt. So that person knows that they've received the communication, but you might not know them very well. Maybe it's someone, just a classmate, asking you for help in class, and you don't even talk to them, right? That's a bit weird. You probably wouldn't want them to know you even got the message, and they have this feeling or pressure almost to respond due to the read receipts, as well as them being able to see their profile and everything. So the other thing is you can't delete your friends. You only can block them. So you can hide people, you can block people, and that's it. If someone messages you randomly, you can't just delete them. If you block them, you don't know. Maybe you need to work with them in a future project. You don't know. Maybe it's, someone that you might need to do business with again. And kind of blocking them from being able to communicate with all could be pretty severe and unnecessary in a lot of cases. So it's not ideal. So you're not really incentivized to keep these people out. You almost have to kind of let these people in your space, even though you don't feel comfortable with them being at that familiarity with you yet. So that's obviously not super good, and that can kind of lead to unnecessary stress. Another thing is inappropriate friend recommendations, or knowing that if you can see someone be a recommended friend to you, they probably can see you listed as a recommended friend for them. And that's just, it can be a bit weird, lead to some awkward situations. Maybe it's someone that you don't get along with. Maybe it's someone you really don't like. Maybe it's a former person that you worked with that you weren't very cordial with, or they weren't very cordial with you. It could be an ex that maybe you had a really mess up breakup with, or maybe your ex cheated on you with somebody, and the person they cheated on you with is what shows up there. And again, if it shows up, for you realize that they probably can see your profile even though you've never messaged them, never talked to them, because it's showing up to them as a recommended friend. And that's not really ideal for either, and that can kind of freak people out, maybe give them some unwanted stress. Next thing is few friends. So people that tend to be more introverted or tend to prefer a smaller friend group, like to have a few people they want to talk to. And these features in Kakao of forcing people to have friends just from messaging once, and not being able to easily just remove somebody or delete somebody from your friends list without having to fully block them, which we've discussed why that would be a bad idea in multiple cases. But it can make it feel like there's just a bunch of people you really don't want having access to things that you don't want them to. And again, we want to try and make these apps not cause unnecessary stress. We want them to make people want to use them, right? So that's another example of something bad. And we've mentioned this a few times already, but I haven't stated this part of it explicitly. But due to the nature of the public profiles and the pictures and the statuses, anyone can know if you're online, on your phone, on your computer, wherever you have an account installed. They can see that you read messages and they can see that you're online. So that can lead to awkward situations where people maybe that you don't want to talk to right now, maybe it's after hours at your work and someone messaged you for a contract, or as the teacher mentioned, or sorry, the music instructor mentioned, that mothers of the students might message them and maybe they're on their off time, maybe they're trying to go out with their friends and it's later in the evening and they're on there to communicate with their friends and schedule a time to go to the bar or the club or something. And this, random mother can see that they're online and that they read the message that she sent at like 7 or 8 at night, which again, you're not working then. It's kind of an unrealistic expectation for you to be accessible at all times, but they can see that information and they don't like that. Also, anyone can see your picture, and anyone that's a friend with you will get a notification when you change your status or picture. And we'll get into kind of that in the later sections. So the next section is conversations in a closed room. So we're still in the too close, people being too close theme. Just for those of you who came in before I explained that, too close, and this theme is for digital spaces, and it's tied to the anthropology kind of mindset of it. So if I'm standing too close to you and I don't know you very well, that would be kind of awkward if I'm in your personal space and you don't know me. So we're kind of using that as the example of too close and using digital spaces as an analog for virtual chat rooms for instant messaging. Conversations in a closed room. So again, these are accounts from people from a focus group, and I've kind of condensed what they've said, and I have a few bullet points so we don't have to read through all of these, but feel free to read these while I'm going through it. So people will have to come up with creative ways to stop getting read receipts. I think, yeah, it's at the bottom there. Someone had to use a airplane mode so that they can check messages without the other person being able to see that they got the message and know that they read the message, because they almost feel trapped. Like they feel these people are coming into their space. They feel like they are saying something to them, and they have no outs. They can't pretend like they didn't get the message because there's a read receipt. They can't pretend like they're not there, like they're not home, because the person can see that they're online. And it feels like they're already in your space. They're already there. Everyone also can listen to every conversation. So in group chats, so in more of a group chat situation, right? Anyone can send a message to anyone. Anyone can invite anyone to a group chat, and every time someone messages, everyone gets it, regardless if it's relevant to you or not. And with the person left the room message that comes up if you tried to leave the room, it makes it feel like you are almost shunned in a way for leaving, because your coworkers or your friends will see that you left the room, and that could lead to some, negative consequences. So people feel almost trapped. They almost feel like they can't leave because of the social faux pas that might be caused by it, and that causes them to kind of freak out and to have stress as well. Additionally, irrelevant messages cause stress. So you're getting all these notifications, your phone's blowing up constantly, and you don't know if it's relevant to you, but additionally it could be relevant to you, like the music teacher that we keep going back to. It's important information that's being sent out to maybe the essay, right, the writing teachers, and you never know if what's being sent to the group chat is relevant to you or not. So you feel the need to go through the entire conversation chains. You feel the need to keep looking, and that you're afraid you'll miss something of importance that you need to respond to, especially when you are doing it for work additionally. And like I said, 90% of people use this, so it's very common for work. In fact, I was in, I think, 6 group chats when I worked in South Korea, and when is it relevant to you or not is a problem, and I agree with that. It's just really annoying to have to go through all of it. All right, so we covered conversations to close room. We're going to move on to the next topic. The next topic is shared status. We've mentioned this briefly. So the shared status. All right, so shared status, we're going to go over that. We kind of mentioned that a few times already, but people get real-time feedback if you are online, you're away, or you're typing. I think there's a really good example here. Oh, yes, for this lady here about talking about going to bathe her baby. Now, the English for these are a bit wonky because it's originally it was spoken in Korean and then probably just typed in Hangul and then translated to English for the purposes of this paper that got written up and submitted to a English article. But she's talking about here that basically like every time she has to go take time to wash her baby or take care of her child, she feels the need to post online an away message, and it's almost like she feels ashamed or like that she's doing something wrong by taking the time to take care of her child, which obviously isn't the case. She's doing the right thing. She's trying to be a good mother. She's trying to take care of her child. But due to how connected everyone is and due to how public all this information is and how, her bosses, her friends, everyone can see this stuff, it affects her and causes unwanted stress to her. So the next thing is people feeling watched, right? Because anyone can see it, again, they feel like anyone can come in, they can come into their space, they can look in through the glass, almost like they're a zoo animal, tap on the glass, and it's kind of freaky, it kind of weirds them out. It's causing the stress. Again, the mother example, I think she put it very well. Additionally, whenever you see a message being typed, you get a little dots in the Kakao. And obviously that makes you feel like you need to type something quickly, because if you take too long to type the message, then they're going to expect something very eloquent, very well thought out. Maybe you're just on your phone, right? Maybe you're on your lunch break. Maybe you're at home and you're using your phone to respond to this message. It's not even your work hours, right? So you're going above and beyond. You're taking time, your personal time, to send a message, and people are maybe on their computer still at work. Maybe they work a different shift, the night shift, or maybe you work the night shift and they work the day shift, etc. They can respond much quicker than you on a keyboard than you could texting on your phone. And you feel kind of stressed because maybe they're responding or giving you additional information. You have to go back and change your message, your original message. We mentioned this before under strangers in the dwelling, but every time you post a new profile picture, it sends a notification to everyone on your friends list. We've already mentioned how anyone that ever messaged you ever gets on your friends list. Anyone that has your phone number saved into their phone, I don't think I've mentioned that one yet, gets added to your friends list. So people that you maybe have contacted once, like maybe you called a guy that fixes transmissions one time, and now magically, because Kakao's default settings adds everyone that's in your contacts, your phone contacts, to your Kakao, you have them as a friend in Kakao, and it creates this weird situation where maybe you went out with some friends and you dressed nice and you felt nice, right? You dressed nice, you felt nice, and you posted a picture of yourself that you thought was nice on your public profile, and now your boss is getting it. You know what I mean? Maybe you weren't dressed appropriate for work, but you don't have the option to have a personal account and a business account. So that's, like I said, not ideal. This one is, I really don't like this one personally. This is the one that kind of creeped me out the most, and I'd totally forgotten about until I was reading this paper. But last seen online messages. So going back to the graduate student example, right? Some weird kid in your class messages you. You don't know them. You never talked to them. They message you maybe something about a homework. I seem for help on a homework. They get a read receipt. Okay, whatever. You don't message back. Not only do they get a read receipt, they can see the last time you've been on. It will say last seen, and then it'll give them a time, like hour and a minute mark. So they know if you're online, and they know if you're not online, and when you got offline. So if you read it, and then you were on later, they know that. And that's, a bit creepy, a bit of a, I don't know, maybe not really what you want. It gets back into anyone can kind of look into your space, see what you're doing. It's creepy. It's a violation of privacy. This one I thought was really funny. I don't think we have a personal antidote for this one on the screen. No, I don't think there was a personal antidote given for this one. But it's about a couple fighting. And basically the girlfriend was like, I don't mind having read receipts on for my boyfriend, except when I'm mad at them. And then I purposely use airplane mode in other ways so that they don't get it. So, when you're fighting, your significant other is just a funny example of not wanting people to see, your last scene or your read receipts. But as you can imagine, when you're mad at someone that you already are pretty close to and kind of trust, how that would be really inappropriate if it's someone that you don't know maybe at all, or someone that you've had a really bad experience with in the past. So we're going to move on to too crowded. Again, we're kind of using this idea of proxemics, or this idea of too many people inside your personal space, but we're just equating it to the digital space with instant messaging, specifically Kakao Talk Line, which is a very popular instant messenger in the Republic of Korea. South Korea is commonly known, and about 90% of the population use it. So it is all-encompassing, very common part of life. So even if you typically don't use instant messengers, it's really hard to get away from it. Crowds in a dwelling place. So the first person is more shy. They don't have many friends, and they don't like having to have all these people on their friends list because they don't really communicate with a lot of people consistently, but they've given up on trying to regulate who's on their friends list just because of how common people are added. Even when there are people that you don't necessarily want, don't necessarily like, they just kind of get shoved onto your list. And like we've said, the auto friend functionality, every time you message someone, they automatically become your friend. Even if you don't want them to, there's recommended friends. They can just add you, even if you don't want them to. If you have someone saved in your phone for any reason, they will automatically get added to, even though if you don't want them to. This just creates a gigantic friends list very rapidly. I think in the paper it said that quite a few people had over 100 friends listed on their list, so it can be very difficult to find the people you actually want to communicate with. And the lower end of the people in the focus group had 50 or more. So it was pretty normal to have around 100. 50 was the lower end, and having 50 contacts could be quite a lot, quite unwieldy, quite unmanageable. And then you can only imagine how many notifications you're getting every time someone changes their status, how many times anyone changes their profile picture. If you have at least 50 of them, that's a lot of people. Let alone, your group chats and the messages that are actually meant for you. So a way some people in South Korea have got around this is they've just tried to move conversations to other platforms, other applications from Kakao, to something less common. For example, one person was trying to get all their really close friends to use a different one, which is probably the way I would do it personally, is I would probably try and make it where all my really close friends use like WhatsApp or some other equivalent. WeChat's another good one, or whatever messaging app. And then that way, because Kakao's become so prevalent in the culture and everything there, I mean, you're kind of stuck using Kakao for your business one. So I would move your personal account to something else. Discord is a really common one in the United States. Or people try to switch it to for their business ones. I know a common one that we use for work are things like Slack, things like Teams, things like Zoom are pretty commonly used more from the business side. Again, even if you try to make it where all your business people are only on Teams and anyone can just add you for any reason, it's still super easy for people to get in contact with you, even if that's not your business account. And again, you can't have multiple accounts, so there's not really too much you can do about it. The military surgeon here also has a really good point about multi-rooms. So you'll have a room that has, this person's in the military, so I'm just gonna use a military example. Say you have you work at a company, right? A company, and you'll have a platoon chat, right? Surgeon probably is in headquarters, so he'll probably be in like the medic section of headquarters. We'll have a headquarters company chat. Probably be in a battalion chat. He might even be in a brigade chat, because if he's a surgeon, he's probably the only surgeon they have in a brigade. So very easily they'll have 4 to 5 chats just for the same information that will just exclude certain groups. So he might even have a squad, and it's just like, okay, a lot of the times being the military surgeon, he's probably pretty high rank. Being a surgeon's a pretty big deal. You usually get paid pretty well for being a surgeon. So they might be in all these chats because they're higher up, and then they have the same information being posted to them 5 different times. and then they probably have to send it to their people that work with them, their assistants or nurses, or I don't know, whatever works with the surgeon. So you can very quickly get spammed with a lot of the same information over and over again, and you don't want to mute these conversations because, maybe, right? Maybe it's a situation where it's your people, right? Your nurses are asking you a follow-up question. Okay, fair play. Maybe it's a company thing, right? Where they're saying, oh, we have this thing going on Saturday, and the company people are like, oh, we have to help set up for it. So they have to be there a different time, right? And you can see how quickly you can get just hundreds of notifications. A lot of them like to do things like, oh, you have to acknowledge this. Like as soon as you get the message, you have to acknowledge it. So you like literally will have to type in like received or I got it or something like that. And as you could imagine, that very quickly shoots the number of notifications you get up a ton. Everyone's having to say received because that's like the culture there. They want to make sure you got the message, even though there's read receipts. That's not enough for them. They want to make sure you got it, so they make you message, and it's just too much. It's way too much. Which gets us to our next section: fragmented and overflowing messages. Right? Okay. So the fragmented part refers to the fact that because it's instant messaging, and unlike text messaging, which used to have a cost, most people have unlimited text messaging and as an option for a plan. But there are many people that still choose to pay per text message or have like an allotment of text messages before they have to start paying. So they're less, I guess, willy-nilly. They're less likely just to shotgun tons and tons and tons of instant messages out. They're much less likely to send out a ton of text messages because there's a financial cost associated with it. Unlike instant messages where people will just blast them, and send emojis, reactions, things like that, and that just causes you to get a ton of messages, a ton of overflow, making your space seem really crowded. Additionally, you can't mark messages as important, so you never really know if it's something you should worry about, something you shouldn't worry about. There's no way for the sender to be like, hey, this matters to you, or does not matter to you. It's just a stream of information constantly at all times. And again, you might be worried that you miss something that is relevant to you or that's actually really important, but you really have no way of telling if it is or not. You can only choose to mute that conversation or not mute that conversation. So, if something important shows up in a conversation, it's something, especially something related to work or family, you're not going to want to miss that. So you kind of get stuck with a ton of notifications. We talked about the no cost, talked about the reactions. I think this person here on the first one on the page talks about New Year's, talks about how it's just become a situation where their family members just send a photo and like maybe like a short little message or maybe just like even an emoji, and how that like is become meaningless. It's like getting a postcard in the mail. Like they don't ever like really have a deeper conversation, and it's almost makes them feel kind of like lonely because they want to talk deeply with their friends and family, the people they care about. But instead, they're just getting these like photos with like fireworks in the background or like these quick family shots instead of having more of a conversation. And they don't like that. They literally don't like just being in a group chat with a bunch of photos being sent out and like no real discourse or conversation or one-on-one interaction. And yeah, I can see why that would be a bummer, really kind of suck and be sad. Yeah, we talked about how the messages, the constant stream of information makes them feel crowded, feels like there are, a tons of conversations going on, makes them feel suffocated almost because there's like a bunch of people in their digital space, their personal space, they have a lot to keep up with, and that can cause unnecessary stress. The negative feeling associated with seeing unread messages, seeing the little red dot, seeing the little thing, the notification at the top of your screen, maybe you're listening to your phone vibrate or the cacao noise, all those things could cause a stress response. I know personally that there was an individual that I was working with that was from Korea, and they had cacao on their phone with the default little notification noise, and when it went off, and it was the first time I'd heard it in like 2 or 3 years, I still had a stress response. I still was like what was that? Like almost like I had like PTSD or something from my experience in Korea. It was wild. I'd not heard it in such a long time, and to have that like almost like immediate stress response from hearing it, I think was a bit of a wake-up call to me. And then seeing this paper that was written on it, I thought was really apt, so I thought I would share it with you all. users don't feel like they can maintain ownership of their own space because they don't initiate their own spaces, because anyone can add them to things, anyone can do anything to make different groups of different people. Maybe you have a group of just like your friends from one area, all your friends, different combinations of friends, endless. You have 50 friends, and you can only imagine how many different permutations there would be of the different combinations of those friend groups. You can see very quickly how it gets crowded and overflowing, and you don't really have initiative to seize these places or create these spaces. You're kind of just added. You feel almost socially obligated to stay in them because they get a message if you leave, and none of that's ideal. Never-ending notifications. Oh, I did that a little early. Yeah, badges, the little red icons, the little numbers over it, that causing people to feel stressed, the little red pointy thing. You get notifications not just from messages, not just from status updates, not just from profile pictures, but guess what? Kakao also sends notifications. Yeah, woo, more notifications. Yeah, they'll do deals because Kakao's a huge company over there. They have things like mascots. They'll do things like stuffed animals with their various emojis. TV taxi deals, TV deals, haircut deals, whatever. Maybe they added a new emoji. Maybe they added an animation to a pre-existing emoji. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the amount of notifications not only you get from everyone else, but from Kakao itself. And then you can't even unsubscribe. You can't just be like, oh, well, I don't own TVs. I'm not really interested in the TV ones. Nope, you get all of them, and you're going to like it. There's nothing you can do about it. So this grad student here talks about how annoying that is. All right, improvements. Okay, so forward effort, right? What do I mean by forward effort? So forward effort is normally, if I want to interact with you, I have to come up to you, I have to walk up to you, I have to talk to you, I have to choose to interact with you, I have to choose to turn on this live stream, I have to choose to post a message in the chat. You choose to initiate conversation, to initiate communication with me, or you choose not to. Due to the way these features work, you can't choose to follow me. You just imagine that like you're scrolling through Twitch, and any single person that appears on your little screen, or you're scrolling through YouTube, and every single little video that appears in your recommended, you automatically get subscribed to, you automatically get followed to. And that would be incredibly annoying. And then when you click on your subscriptions, even though it's someone that you've never even watched a video from, maybe you clicked on a video once, it automatically subscribes you, and it's clogging up your subscription feed, and you'd have to go through and try to unsubscribe from all of them. That's what they mean by backwards effort. People have to, instead of taking the forward effort to get to know people and to choose to interact with people, they're having to take a backward effort of putting up blockers and stopping people from interacting with them when they don't want to. And that's not ideal. That causes, not what you want from a social app, from an instant messaging app. You don't want people to recoil. You want people to go and interact. An example of this is people will start adding numbers and or A to the beginning of their people they actually want to talk to on their friends list to try and put them higher up in the queue, just to make it a little easier for them to find them. All right, various distances. Various distances, what do I mean by various distances? Well, currently you see all notifications or none of the notifications per chat, right? Various distances would mean, hey, like I'm close friends with you, I want to get all the notifications. Hey, I don't really know you that much, I only want notifications that are relevant to me, so you can kind of take a step back. So how would you implement this in a app, right? Because we're not doing an app. But basically, for various distance, we're talking about instant messaging apps. This one lets anyone message you. It's tied to your real name. It's tied to your phone number. It's really easy for people to get access to you, which isn't ideal. We're talking about the second bullet point here, various distances. So basically, we're to compare this to like real life or to Twitch or YouTube, right? Let's just say it's a live stream, right? Imagine I could just message you once on YouTube, and I would be able to see everything. Like I'd be able to see your real name, your phone number. I would be able to see all that information. I would be able to add you to group chats without your permission. Maybe you would see every single chat message that ever comes up on one of my live streams. would get sent to your phone as a notification, right? That would be pretty annoying. You don't even know me. You just clicked on a random live stream. You don't want every notification ever coming up to you. That would be super annoying, and I get that. But that's kind of what these people are living with. So instead, you would be able to have keywords, or for you guys, it's subscriptions, right? Follows. You can choose who you get notifications from. Maybe you could set a keyword finder. So if it's going back to the music teacher example, if it includes the word music in the message, then, or all teachers, maybe the word all teachers or something like that, you would get it pushed through as a notification, but normally you wouldn't, and you wouldn't have this. Another way of doing that or implementing that would be to allow the senders to send out the notifications or choose to. So either they can have it where it's a silent notification, where it's something that isn't super important. So they can be like, okay, there's no notification for this message I'm sending out. It's information, but it's not worth bothering people for. Maybe schedule it. Maybe you know that that person's in a class right now, or maybe that person is in a meeting right now, and you could schedule it so that maybe like 5 minutes after they get out their meeting, that message gets sent, but you're not in that meeting, and you want to make sure that you put it there before you forget. The last one would be able to like basically tag people, or to like assign groups and only to send it to certain groups. So you only want to send it to a certain category of teachers. You only want to send it to maybe students that are in a certain class, things like that. And provide satisfaction. What do I mean by provide satisfaction? Well, the paper suggests creating, they call it bundles of messages, but really it's threads. Very similar to old forums, threads where you would have a main topic and then you'd have replies. So just like in the comment section, you can have a main comment, and then you have all the replies to the comments, kind of something like that, grouping it by topic, grouping it by maybe the times they were posted, things like that. So you can very quickly see, hey, this thread is relevant to me, this bundle is relevant to me, or it's not relevant to me. And you can very quickly identify if it's something you should care about or something you shouldn't care about, so you can move on with your day. What do you think? So we're going to talk about the larger implications now. Why is this important? Why do we care about people being stressed out for an instant messaging app that's in Korea? You know, like, you're like, I'm not a Korean, I don't use Kakao, why do I care? Well, I think these have a lot of implications for other things. I'm sure you have heard that there are multiple regulatory bodies that want to do things like tie your online identity to your real name, in the United States to your like social security number, so that you do anything online, it's tied to your real life name, right? Pretty creepy, pretty weird. We can see using Kakao as a good example of how when things are tied to you in that way, it can cause stress that maybe you hadn't thought of previously because you never experienced something like that. Another example would be if a thing became so accessible that, or so widely used that everyone had it. I think a good example of that maybe is like social media, like Facebook, right? All the kids were on Facebook, right? All the younger people were on Facebook. And then all their parents got on Facebook. And then their digital space, right, the little thing that they made kind of didn't become the little thing they made anymore. Their parents had access to it. Their parents were like texting them, or their grandparents were messaging them being like, yo, are you posting pictures of you drinking? You're like 16, right? Things like that. And that caused all the young people to leave. And now all the young people are on TikTok, and TikTok's the current thing that the younger generation uses. And now it's really only the older generation, the boomers, that are still on Facebook. But other than those two bad cases where everyone's on some social media, or, you know, our real life identities are tied to it, you can kind of use some of these things and listen to it and adapt maybe how you communicate with people. If you know that fragmented messages, or like a lot of messages at one time, stresses people out, hey, maybe now that you know that, take your time. Take your time in your replies. Try to send one message, you know, one succinct message. A lot of applications you can hold shift and enter to have multiple lines without it being different messages. So maybe consider something like that, or control enter. I don't know. It depends on what you're using. But consider doing that, having little blocks of text all as one message instead of having multiple messages, because that would cause modifications, could potentially lead to more stress. Additionally, you know, if you're going to respond to something, if it's a situation where it doesn't warrant a response, maybe don't. Or like for me, for example, when I get a group email or I get a group text message or I get a group instant message, I will direct message the person and respond to it instead of telling everybody, so I don't contribute to that overflow, right? So I don't know, just maybe think about these things, consider how they could impact you, even if you might not feel these stressors yourself, right? Maybe you are kind of used to that. Well, maybe other people aren't. And these are probably people you care about or that you would at least not want to freak out, right? So maybe let's put a little effort to try and make things a little bit better for people, because that's all we can do at the end of the day. We don't know what everyone's going through, but we can do our little bits to make their life a little easier.